been a long time since I've talked about this. I spent a lot of time, or most of my life, being a policeman, 35 years, and 20 years ago, when this happened, people didn't believe me. I got some family members who don't want to talk about it. It's been said and done, it's over. Forget about it. But Clay was a part of our history. Yes, Clay was evil at times. But yet I still love him, you know. It looked like police officers behind every tree in the woods. I mean, they were just, gun barrels were pointed at Clay. If he starts moving that rifle towards any of those officers, they're gonna unload on him. And they're just gonna fill him full of holes. And then I'm gonna watch my brother die. I felt like I'm the one that has to try to do something to stop him. But this expression on his face and those eyes just told me volumes that my little brother, is evil. On July the 7th, 1965, my father died in a plane crash. And on that day, my grandfather held my hands in his hands and he goes, "Walt, you're the man of the family. You're it. You don't have a daddy now. Your brothers don't have a daddy. You're the oldest. You gotta take care of them." He just ingrained in me I was supposed to look after my mother and my younger brothers. And from that time on, I just kind of tried to do what he said. My stepfather, he married my mother 4 or 5 years after my real father died. And Clay was the joy of our lives when he was first born. That's the little brother. He's about 3 years old. Probably one of the most beautiful children you'll ever see in your life, in my opinion. Just didn't have a mean bone in his body. I was about 13 when he was born. Me being the oldest, I would, take care of Clay. If he needed to be fed, I'd feed him. If he needed a diaper change, I'd change him. And I was glad to do it. I wanted to do it. I just loved that kid. I really did. Clay had a hard time in school. He just couldn't control his temper at times. And one time, he got his nose broke in a fight. And Mom said she was starting to worry about him. She would ask me to go talk to him.
Hey, Clay.
I was working as a police officer, and I guess Mom looked at me as I could be an authority figure for him.
Mom was worried about you.
Somebody's got to take care of him.
Can't do that, Clay. You gotta walk away. As hard as it is.
I said, "Well, Clay, I can understand 1 or 2 fights at school a year, but this is an ongoing thing, and Mom's getting tired of it. She don't know what to do with you."
Sometimes you just gotta be the bigger man and walk away.
And he said, "Now, I'm not gonna take any much crap." And I said, "Clay, getting in trouble like this is not gonna get you anywhere. And it's all gonna cause you more problems, But there was very little reaction.
You got to promise me you're not gonna let this kind of thing happen again.
I knew he was a little more aggressive than most kids once he lost his temper, but I didn't think it'd turn into what it did. He never did very well in school, but he started doing even worse. And he came home drunk 1 or 2 times that I remember, and he went from alcohol to marijuana I wasn't living at home, but I came home to visit. Mom went home, I walked in the house, and I immediately just smelled dope in the house. And Clay and one of his friends was sitting on the living room couch, just high as a kite. And he had over an ounce bag of pot on the coffee table. He had the same symptoms as people I used to arrest.
What the hell is this?
The hell's it look like?
He didn't show respect to anyone, and Clay could never see the consequences of his actions. So I thought, you know, it's time for him to get a little lesson. So I called the sheriff's office and tell him, hey, he's got a couple of ounces on him. I want you to come out here and arrest him.
Come on, Walt. We're just having a little fun.
He said, man, Walt, you don't have to send me to jail, man. Why do you want to do that? I said, your butt needs to go to jail. That's where you need to be. I was trying to scare him away from his evil activities. His buddy was scared, but Clay he sat there, just kind of gave me the evil look. You couldn't scare him with anything. You couldn't threaten him with taking him to jail or taking something away from him. Just didn't care. He just didn't. That was his attitude. Well, they never showed up. I called them twice. Never showed up. So I just took the dope and I flushed it down the toilet. And, you know, I saw Clay as the way a lot of my friends were back at that age, the way that I was. I thought he was just one of the many that rebels. At first, Roy seemed to be a pretty good guy. Mom seemed to love him, but he just started getting a little meaner. Probably one of the worst nights I remember, I was at the house. All of a sudden, I heard my mother and Roy screaming and hollering at each other upstairs. When I walked into the bedroom to see what was going on.
What's going on?
Roy was on one side of the bed. My mom was on the other side of the room crying.
Time to go. Relax.
She said, he hit me, Walt. He hit me. Get him out. Get him out.
Relax. Relax. Time to go.
Clay was across the hallway in his bedroom, and he heard every bit of it. I just glanced at him as we were walking past, and he was just standing there, had his big blue eyes, and they were filled with tears. I didn't say anything to him, he didn't say anything to me, but he was becoming more angry. At our house, we had a gun cabinet. It wasn't locked, we didn't have any doors on it. It was just a box where you could just lay your rifle or shotgun in. I came home one day to my mother's house, and Clay was in a rage and crying at the same time. And he grabbed a shotgun, and he started loading it. And this is summertime. There's no hunting in the summertime.
Clay, what are you doing?
I'm gonna kill him.
But he was determined to shoot Roy.
Come on, let's put that gun down. Look at me. Don't, Clay. What?
So I grabbed the shotgun from him. And he was pulling on the gun, trying to get away from me so he could go shoot his daddy.
Give me the gun. I'm gonna shoot him.
He was pulling on the gun with me, trying to get away from me so he could go shoot his daddy. I finally jerked it out of his hands. I grabbed him by the collar and we just went outside and we talked. but he was in a rage. I couldn't settle him down to talk to him.
I'm gonna kill him.
What are you thinking?
I'm gonna kill him.
I said, Clay, you don't want to do that. Your dad and I have had our problems, you know. I said, but you don't want to do that. And yeah, I do. I want to kill him.
You gotta look at me, man. Actions have consequences, brother. Come on.
If he had been physically big enough and strong enough to overpower me, I think he would have shot somebody. After his dad left Mom, he just was so withdrawn. He just wasn't the kid that he was prior to that. I remember one time I go home and no one's home. And I find a drawing tablet and I just thumbing through it. And there were these satanic drawings. Pentagrams and Satan lives, you know, I love Lucifer, that kind of stuff. And that's not right. In my mind, you know, that's evil. That's the contrast of God. Our mother came home. I said, have you seen this? She said, no, not really. I just assumed it was schoolwork. And I said, look at this. She was stunned. I mean, she was aghast. She said, I had no idea this was in here.
Hey!
When Clay came in the house, he could tell by the way Mom and I were looking at him that something was wrong. And when he realized that I saw his drawings, I mean, he just wanted to come at me. Those are mine. What are you doing? That's my stuff. You have no right to my stuff. And he's just going off.
No! Stop it!
I said, Clay, what are you thinking? This is our mother's house. She doesn't approve of it. I don't approve of it. We're not going to have it. And I just ripped him up.
No, please stop!
He blew up again, you know, I don't mess with your stuff. Stay out of my stuff. And that was really probably one of the major turning points. After that day, Clay didn't really like me at all. Where Mom lived, we hunted on her property quite a bit. And not too far from her house, I was walking down this trail and I saw the remains of a dog. In the entrails of the dog, like the intestines, it looked like they were spread out over in a kind of a circular diagram. There were some marks drawn in the dirt and some formations made out of rocks. I ran to the house and I said, Mom, I said, somebody's dog is on your property over there. And I said, looks like somebody gutted it. Clay chuckled. I said, I turned to him and said, you know something about this? He said, yeah, he's with Satan now. I said, what are you talking about? He said, Walt. He said, I don't believe that Jesus stuff anymore. He said, it's Lucifer. He's Satan. He's the man. And then Clay admitted it. He and a couple of his buddies sacrificed a dog for Satan. And he said he did it more than once. He said he's killed other animals. He loved to hang cats and just watch them squirm till they died. Thought he was nuts. I didn't want to believe him, Yeah, we grew up with animals, dogs, cats, ducks. He never exhibited anything like that before. He loved animals. Pictures like this that remind me that he did like animals, that he was affectionate towards animals. He never showed any animosity or anger or anything towards an animal that I ever saw. Mom got Clay to go to church with her one time, and it took. I mean, he grabbed a hold of it. And from the time he was 16 till he was 22, he was all about Jesus. He knew the Bible by verse better than I did. This was when he was serving Jesus. He was a godly young man at this time. And it just took a burden off of us. Now we knew that he was going to bigger and better things. This is what we wanted him to become for the rest of his life, you know.
What is
Boy, stop it!
He was looking dead at me, and it happened like that. And I knew that in order for me to stop him, I was going to have to hit him.
Boy, stop it! No!
This is my little brother, Clay. He was 22 years old right here. His eyes look dull, you know, like there's nothing in them. This is when he was going back to his old self. He didn't talk about church as much. He didn't talk about Satan, but he didn't talk about Jesus either. And he would just have a sustained anger.
There you go, Mama.
Oh, thank you, sweetie.
You're welcome.
It's so good to see you.
Yeah, I wish I could come by more often.
I remember I went to visit Mom, and we were just talking. I happened to look over to my left, and there was a brand new guitar on a guitar stand in the living room.
This is nice. Is this Clay's?
So I went and picked the guitar up, and I was just strumming the guitar, just playing a few chords. And I heard the Clay's door just slam open. And he came just strutting out down the hallway of the house.
Put that down.
And Clay grabs the neck of the guitar, tries to jerk away from, get in my guitar. He rears back like he's fixing to punch me. And before I even realized it, I just smacked him upside the head. And when I hit him harder than what I intended to.
Clay? Clay, are you okay, honey?
Clay, come here, man.
And I said, Clay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have hit you like that. And anyway, he said, okay. He said, just forget it. And he grabbed the guitar and he took it into his room and locked the door. I knock on his bedroom door.
Clay, come on, man.
I said, Clay, I'm sorry. Would you come out here and talk to me? I'm sorry. You know, I shouldn't have done that. And no answer. He just had his door locked. He didn't want to talk to me at all. Several years after, he said, I've got something I need to tell you. He said, you remember the time we had the fight over the guitar and you hit me? He said, you remember when I didn't answer the door, when you knocked on the door and I didn't want to talk to you? I said, yeah, Ross, I remember it well. He said, well, the devil, Lucifer, told me to load my shotgun and come out there and shoot and kill you and Mom.
Come on, man. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit you that hard.
And the only reason I didn't is because Jesus himself was telling the devil he's not going to do it. I said, are you serious? He said, well, I'm dead serious. Satan told me to kill you and Mom. And I loaded my shotgun. I was gonna go out there and shoot you and Mom. He was struggling with good or evil. And good won that day. He stole some things from a neighbor, and my mother asked me if I could go to court with him. He was found guilty of the charges, and the judge asked me, what do I recommend?
Your Honor, he needs to take responsibility for his actions.
Immediately, without hesitation, said, I think Clay needs the maximum. And the reason for that was because I thought there was still hope for Clay. If the penalty was severe enough, if he could feel the consequences of his actions, it might straighten him out. It might knock some of the hardness off of him. Clay was standing to my left, and I could see in my peripheral vision. He turned and he gave me that evil look. He hated me at that moment. I mean, he absolutely just couldn't stand the sight of me. The judge, he didn't give him the maximum. He gave him a fine, restitution, but he didn't do any jail time. When Clay and I left the courtroom, he just had rage all in him. I could just see it and feel it. He said, Walt, I want to tell you something. I just love to break into somebody's house and just tiptoe around there and just watch people sleeping. Just to know that I can kill them anytime I want to. Just to know that I can walk out of here, out of this room, and either leaving them alive or leaving them dead. I said, did you hurt anybody? Did you kill him? He said, no, I didn't hurt anybody. He said, but it just, man, just to know that you can.
It's just for the thrill of it.
I didn't tell anybody that. I didn't tell our mother that. To have your younger brother actually talk about what he could do to somebody, I didn't want to believe that he really would. And I took him back to our mother's house. And after that, we didn't talk for a long time. Misty was probably 20 years old. She was just a nice girl, you know, and she seemed very sweet, very honest, very innocent. But their relationship it became volatile. The police went over to Clay and Misty's home several times, where he'd slapped her or beat her or threatened her or did something he wasn't supposed to. I knew what his temper was, but I didn't think Clay could kill anybody. I didn't want to believe it.
Hello?
One day, my mother called and said that, Walt, I need to talk to you about Clay.
Calm down.
And my first statement was, well, what's he done now?
I think he might have actually killed somebody.
Mom said Clay told her that he may have killed Misty. March 28th, 1998, I got a phone call from our mother.
Mom, calm down.
Walt, I need to talk to you about Clay. I heard fear in her voice for the first time in a long time.
What's he done?
And she said, Clay told me that he thinks he's done something real bad, but he's not sure.
I just don't know how to help him.
And she said, he came to my home. I noticed he was all scratched up.
Clay, what's wrong?
He had scratches all over his face and arms. And she said, he told her, I want $1,500 so I can go to Mexico. He kept repeating it, I think I've done something bad. I think I've killed a bunch of people. I said, do you believe him? She said, I don't know. But when I refused to give him some money, he was very angry and he left. I thought, this is some kind of a embellishment. Clay probably, maybe he hit somebody and they're in the hospital, and I thought it was anything but murder.
All right, Mom, I'm gonna get down to the bottom of this.
I'm a policeman. I carry a pistol wherever I go. And if Clay is on a killing rampage, and if he points a gun at me, there's a good chance I'm going to shoot back. I need to find out any more information that might be available. So I called the local sheriff's office.
It's Walt.
I said, Sheriff, I'm Walt Chavis. I'm Clay Smith's brother.
I gotta talk to you about my brother Clay.
He said, where are you at? And when he asked that question, I knew in my heart, in my soul, there was something to this, that he probably did kill somebody. He didn't say a word. I just followed him into his office.
Have a seat.
He handed me a stack of papers about 2 inches thick.
Have a look.
And I saw 5 warrants for capital murder on my brother. And I'm looking at the names. I didn't know who they were. I didn't even recognize Misty's name. I saw her name in black and white, but it didn't register to me who she was at that time. I wasn't coping with what I was just given readily. I said, you think he killed 5 people? They are absolutely positively sure he did.
Starting with the same counties, coroner's report, same patterns.
He said, we're gonna go looking for him. He said, I have a question for you. Are you willing to help us find your little brother? And I thought, my little brother murdered all these people. I said, my God in heaven. And I said, yes, I will help you any way I can.
Thank you.
When we arrived, 6 or 8 officers at one time started hollering on the radio. He's running, he's running, he's running. He's got a gun, he's got a gun. When I heard the word gun over the radio, I thought, man, they're gonna kill him. I could see deputies jumping out the cars. They're running, they're hitting the woods. They're all carrying weapons, shotguns, rifles, pistols. It was panic. The deputy that I was riding with, he said, you don't go anywhere, you stay right here. 20 minutes felt like hours. I heard a lot of shouting. I couldn't make out what it was. I just knew someone was gonna get shot or killed. When I heard over the radio, is his brother still with you? And he said, yes. He said, bring him here. I saw my little brother standing in a little clearing.
Don't come closer to me. Hey, I see you over there. Don't move. Don't you move.
It looked like police officers behind every tree in the woods. I mean, they were just, gun barrels were pointed at Clay.
Hey, stay there.
He had a rifle in his hand. I knew if he starts moving that rifle towards any of those officers, they're gonna unload on him. They're just gonna fill him full of holes. And then I'm gonna watch my brother die. I felt like I'm the one that has to try to do something to stop him.
Clay?
I got within about 20 feet of him. And he said, "Walt, what the hell are you doing here?" Like it was a joyous reunion.
Hey, Walt, how you doing?
Hey, Clay, how you doing, man? Hey.
I said, "Clay, you tell me what you're doing here." And he just gave out the biggest, roaringest laugh I've ever heard in my life. He said, "Walt, don't you know? I sent 3 to heaven and 2 to hell." I said, "Clay, you don't have the authority to send anybody to heaven or to hell." I said, "What can I do to make you put that gun down?" He said, "Nothing. I'm willing to die. Are you willing to die, Walt?"
Come on, Clay. It's just you and me here talking, all right?
I don't have the words. I don't have the vocabulary to explain it to you. I've looked into the eyes of a lot of criminals in my time, and this expression on his face and those eyes just told me volumes that my little brother, is evil.
Clay, come on.
I started talking to him just about stuff, just, members of our family. I said, "What do you think Mom's gonna think?"
Break her heart.
"What about Misty?" When I said that, his head just kind of dropped. He kind of gestured that just kind of hit home. And he relaxed a little bit. He went from this to this. I thought, okay, I'll be able to walk up to him, and just take the gun from him, or he'll hand it to me, and it'll be over. And as he was lowering the gun, boom! A shot rang out, and it hit him right in here, right below his shoulder, and it spun him around. I was the closest one to him, and I ran over there to him, and from the bicep to the tricep, best part of his arm was gone. They had an ambulance on standby, and they put him on the gurney. And I heard the medics saying, "Well, this is bad, this is bad." I just couldn't comprehend, is this really happening? Is this really happening? Am I really here? Did I just see my little brother get shot? That's one of the bodies. That's something that I wish I could forget for the rest of my life. I've seen hundreds and maybe a couple of thousand deaths, but the crime scenes that I've worked in the past as a police officer, I didn't have any feeling for it, or very little. I was trying to do a job. Nothing like this. This is personal. This is the first time in 20 years I've seen their pictures. This is Misty. This is Samantha. She was the babysitter. And this is Shelley, the mother of these 2 children. This was Sean. This was Taylor. How can anybody want to hurt children like that? I don't know. Do they look like they can hurt somebody? Do they look like you would have to defend yourself against them? Why he wanted to do that, I don't know. I would gladly give my life, bring those people back. I don't know what to say to the victims' families. I really don't, other than I'm sorry. Clay never admitted to killing them. But I'll try to go see him at least once a month or more.
How's Mom?
She's all right.
One day we were talking, and he said, Walt, do you think I deserve to die? And I asked him, I said, did you kill him? Did you kill all those people? And he looked down, and he never would say anything. And I said, Clay, I said, my belief is whoever killed them, whoever shot them, I believe that person needs to die. Love Clay. Loved him as much as I've ever loved anybody in my life. But he deserved to die. This is me and Clay. This is the last time I saw Clay. This is the day before he was executed. I got a smile on my face because this is the first time in 2 years I got to hug him. There wasn't as much crying as I thought there might be. We spent about 2 or 3 hours with him, talked about the good things in life. He said, Walt, he said, I love you. I want to thank you for everything you did for me growing up. Anyway, he just said, take care of Mama. I said, okay. The day of his execution was just my pastor and myself on Clay's side. Prison officials gave the formal statement. On this day, May the 8th, 2001, Clay King Smith was pronounced dead at 9:03 p.m. The victims' friends and family, they were hooping and hollering, yay, and we're glad the bastard's dead now, and stuff like that. And my pastor just put his arm around me and prayed for me. And he said, well, let's go now. You don't need to listen to any more of this. So we left and drove to my mother's home. And when I stepped in the door, Mama knew it was over. It was just a bad night, just a hard night. After all this happened with Clay, it softened me. It really did. I was a policeman for 20 more years after that. When I used to take someone to jail, I treated them more human, I guess, instead of just a number who violated or committed a criminal act. It's made me more compassionate, made me a little more understanding, but that badge is just getting heavy. For me, it's just a weight that I don't want to carry anymore. And I'm going to leave law enforcement knowing that I can honestly say I did the best that I could. It's been almost 20 years, and I know the bad things that Clay did. I was there for some of it. But I try not to, I don't think of Clay in the bad terms. I don't think of him as the murderer. I don't think of him as someone who used to beat people up. I think of him as my brother. You know, yeah, I regret things that I could have done that I didn't do. I could have been the one that could have prevented it.
At 12:07 a.m., the street is empty in a way that feels staged, like the town itself has been ordered to hold its breath. Porch lights glow behind curtains. Sprinklers tick somewhere out of sight. A humid Florida night presses down, heavy as a wet blanket, and the air smells like warm asphalt, brackish water, and jasmine that's trying too hard. Then the engines roll in, unmarked, low-slung, lights off until the last second, tires whispering over the pavement as if even rubber is afraid to make noise. Doors open. Radios hiss. A hand signals. Another checks the strap of a vest. A third man, older, eyes fixed, jaw set, stares at a single house like it's been waiting for him for 34 years. Someone murmurs a code word. Someone else answers. The final sound before impact is a boot shifting on gravel. And then the front door shutters under the ram and the quiet splits wide open. That's what the neighbors will tell reporters in the morning. That it didn't feel like an arrest. Felt like a reckoning. That the raid didn't wake the town so much as reminded of the thing it never truly put to sleep. The Florida 1989 cold case everybody pretended was sad and mysterious and just one of those tragedies, right up until the moment the past came back with a warrant and a battering ram. Because a tape surfaced. A hidden tape. Not a confession carved into stone. Not a blood-stained souvenir. Not a neat little envelope mailed to the police with a villain's signature. A tape that shouldn't exist anymore. A tape that was never logged, never tagged, never placed in evidence. The kind of object that lives in the shadow world between memory and proof, passed hand to hand like a curse. A tape that sat for decades in a place nobody would think to look. A place so ordinary it became invisible. Until one person moved the wrong box, reached into the wrong cabinet, and pulled out a plastic rectangle that made their stomach drop. It begins, as it always does, with someone missing. June 1989. The town is coastal, salt-eaten, sunburnt around the edges. Not Miami glamorous, not Keys lazy, just a working strip of Florida where tourists stop for fried shrimp, and locals keep their voices low when they talk about the water. The marshes beyond the last street are a green-black maze, and the canals behind the houses look harmless until you remember what hides under lily pads. Heat shimmers off the road by 9 in the morning. At night, thunderstorms pile up like bruises over the horizon and roll in without warning. Her name is Marlene Sykes, 22, waitress at a dockside restaurant that smells like beer, Old Bay, and sunscreen. She has a laugh people describe as bright, the kind of word you only use after something goes dark. She lives in a small rental off Shoreline Drive with her younger sister, and she's the sort of person who remembers birthdays, who leaves notes on the fridge, who always calls if she's running late. She's saving for a car that doesn't stall at stoplights. She's dating a guy who works boats for tourists and tells the same story twice when he's nervous. She has a habit of tucking hair behind her ear that makes older men at the bar believe she's listening when she isn't. On the night she disappears, Marlene clocks out at 10:41 p.m. The manager remembers because the register tape prints it like a verdict. She wipes down her section, counts her tips, slips a denim jacket over her shoulders because the air conditioning inside the restaurant is brutal even in summer. A coworker sees her step outside into the parking lot, where sodium lights make everyone look sickly and pale. Marlene's car is there. A beige compact with a cracked taillight and a bumper sticker that reads "Don't tread on me," borrowed from her uncle. She waves. She smiles. She says something, nobody can remember what, and then she's swallowed by the dark between the lights. By midnight, she hasn't come home. By 1 a.m., her sister is calling the restaurant, then the boyfriend, then anyone whose number she can find. By 2:30 a.m., she's driving the route herself, Eyes scanning ditches, shoulders tight, knuckles white around the steering wheel. She checks the diner lot first. Marlene's car is still there. Locked. Purse on the passenger seat. Keys missing. The kind of detail that makes you want to believe she'll walk back any second, annoyed, saying she got a ride with someone because her car wouldn't start. But the car starts. It always started. And a purse left behind is not a purse forgotten. It's a purse abandoned. The sheriff's office takes the report in the slow, bureaucratic tone that can kill hope. Adults do this sometimes. She could be with friends. Maybe she needed space. The sister hears those words and something in her expression freezes. A hardening that will never soften again. She keeps repeating the facts. Marlene is responsible. Marlene called. Marlene wouldn't leave her purse. Marlene wouldn't vanish into a Florida night without telling someone. The deputy finally writes it down. But the pen moves like he's filling out paperwork for a broken street lamp. Morning comes with sticky sunlight and the smell of mangroves. The first search is messy and improvised. Friends, family, a few deputies walking shoulder to shoulder through scrub brush calling her name. They find nothing at first and the nothing is loud. They find cigarette butts. They find beer cans. They find a pocket knife half buried in sand that belongs to nobody they know. They find footprints by the canal that could belong to anyone, because in Florida, bare feet on damp soil are not a clue. They bring a dog out. The dog circles the parking lot, sniffs the driver's side door, pulls toward the back of the restaurant, toward the dumpsters where fish heads rot in the heat. The dog barks. The handler frowns. Someone takes a photo. Someone else shrugs. It goes into a folder. It becomes another detail people repeat like a prayer. Hoping repetition turns it into meaning. The headlines come fast at first, printed in thick black ink that makes tragedy look official. Local waitress missing. Family pleads for help. Shoreline drive on edge. The restaurant puts up flyers. The boyfriend stands in front of cameras and looks too polished, too rehearsed, as if someone gave him a script. His eyes are dry. People notice. People talk. The town becomes a rumor machine, grinding the same names into different shapes. Because there are always names. The ex who didn't want to be an ex. The customer who left a big tip and lingered too long. The deputy known for drinking. The boat mechanic with a temper. The tourist passing through. The local drifter who sleeps near the docks. And one more. A man everybody knows but nobody really knows. The kind of man who smiles like a friendly neighbor and keeps his blinds closed at night. His name is Wallace Klein. He owns a small electronics repair shop near the highway, TVs, VCRs, car radios. The sign is sun-faded. The shop smells like solder and dust. Kids go there to get their Walkmans fixed. Older folks go there when their televisions flicker. Wallace is polite. Wallace is helpful. Wallace is the type of guy who offers discounts to church ladies and says ma'am like he was born doing it. The first time his name comes up is barely a moment. Marlene had brought a portable cassette player to his shop a week earlier. It was skipping. She'd wanted it fixed because she listened to music on her late drives home. A clerk remembers her. A receipt exists. Nothing illegal about that. But the detective, Detective Hank Rourke, the one with the tight jaw and tired eyes, writes Wallace Klein's name down anyway because detectives write everything down. Because sometimes the smallest thread leads somewhere ugly. Weeks pass. Then months. The case cools the way Florida evenings never do. Slowly and then all at once. Tips dry up. Searches stop. The flyers peel and curl. The diner parking lot returns to normal, and that's what sickens Marlene's sister the most. The way normal can grow around a missing person like mold. The official story becomes cautious. No evidence of foul play. Investigation ongoing. We remain hopeful. Unofficially, the town chooses an ending because people can't live in the middle forever. Some say she ran. Some say she drowned. Some say she got into a car she shouldn't have gotten into, and that's the last choice she ever made. And every time someone says it, they put a tiny bit of blame into the air, because blaming the missing is easier than admitting anyone can be taken. Then the folder is stamped. Then the box is taped shut. Then the case becomes a cold case, and the words themselves sound like ice, like a morgue drawer sliding closed. Years later, Detective Rourke retires with a back that aches when it rains and a mind that refuses to let certain images go. He keeps one photo in a personal file he never talks about. Marlene's car under those sodium lights, purse on the seat like she's just gone inside for a minute. He tells himself he did what he could. He tells himself the town was different back then. Less technology, fewer cameras, fewer resources. He tells himself it wasn't personal. But the truth is every detective carries a ghost or two, and Marlene becomes his. A shadow that steps into his thoughts at odd times, uninvited. And then, decades later, the tape appears. It doesn't arrive with a dramatic knock at the station door. It doesn't come sealed in a brown envelope. It emerges from an estate cleanout like a bone surfaced by a tide. A woman is cleaning out her late father's house. Stacked boxes in a spare bedroom, old tools, old bills, old photographs that smell like time. Her father had been a deputy in 1989, a quiet man who drank coffee black and never talked about work at the dinner table. She finds his old uniform in a garment bag, his badge in a drawer, a shoebox of mementos, a faded patch, a commendation letter, and beneath them, wrapped in a towel like someone wanted to muffle it even in death, a VHS cassette with no label. But the tape has markings if you know where to look. Numbers scratched into the plastic near the edge. A strip of masking tape peeled away, leaving a ghost of adhesive. And on the inside spool, seen through the clear window, the tape itself looks slightly wrinkled, like it has been played and rewound too many times by someone with shaking hands. She doesn't know what it is. Not at first. She brings it to a friend who still owns a VCR because who has a VCR anymore? They plug it in. The machine whirs. The screen floods blue, then static, then a sudden image that makes the woman's throat tighten so hard she can barely breathe. Night footage. Grainy. Handheld. A parking lot under sodium lights. The back corner of a restaurant. A dumpster. A figure moving at the edge of the frame. Someone in a denim jacket. Someone who looks like Marlene Sykes. And a voice, male, low, close to the camera, saying something that sounds like a joke until you realize the tone is wrong. Not playful. Not friendly. Predatory. The woman pauses it. Rewinds. Plays again. Her hands sweat. Her heart bangs against her ribs like it wants out. She watches the figure stumble. Like someone grabbed her arm. She watches a shadow lean in from off camera. She watches the camera dip, then lift, as if the person filming is trying to keep the moment in frame, trying to capture it, trying to keep it as proof or trophy. The footage cuts abruptly, as if the recording stopped mid-breath. She calls the sheriff's office with a voice that doesn't sound like her own. The tape is picked up the same day. For the first time in years, Marlene Sykes' name is printed on paper at the department, and it doesn't look like an artifact. It looks like a live wire. Inside the evidence room, people gather around a monitor like moths around a flame. Younger deputies stare wide-eyed. Older ones go rigid, recognizing the angle, the shadows, the place. Someone says, "This can't be real." Someone else says, "Where was this?" A supervisor asks the question nobody wants to ask. Who had it? They run the tape through modern enhancement software. They freeze frames. They zoom. They sharpen. They isolate the audio, pulling the voice out of the hiss and static like a confession clawed from a grave. And as the image clarifies, a detail surfaces that turns the room cold despite the Florida heat. The reflection in a car window, the faint outline of the person holding the camera, the shape of his shoulders, the angle of his head. A man. Close to average height. Hairline receding even then. A posture that feels familiar to someone who has watched too many old photos. And around his wrist, catching the light as the camera shifts, a bright band like a watch or a bracelet, something distinct enough to be remembered, distinct enough to be compared. Detective Rourke is called back in, pulled from retirement like a witness to his own failure. He watches the footage once, twice. His jaw clenches until the muscles jump. He doesn't say much. He just points slow and steady, at the edge of the frame where the camera dips and a sign flickers in the background. Klein Electronics, visible through a gap between buildings, the letters half-lit, half-dead, like a whisper from the past. The room goes silent in the way it goes silent right before a storm breaks. And that's how you get a midnight raid. Not from rumors. Not from hunches. Not from a town's fear. From a hidden tape that should have been buried forever, rising up like something that refuses to stay dead, dragging an old name into fluorescent light, forcing every person in that room to confront a single brutal truth. Somebody filmed the moment Marlene disappeared, and somebody kept it, and somebody lived an entire lifetime with that tape in their possession. While the town kept eating seafood dinners and watching sunsets and telling itself the past was past. The battering ram hits again, wood splintering with a sound like a rib cracking, and the entryway fills with that raw, chemical stink of fresh sawdust and adrenaline. Sheriff's office. Voices stack over each other, sharp and rehearsed, but the house doesn't answer with screams, doesn't answer with gunfire, doesn't answer with anything except a television flickering somewhere deep inside, muted, casting pale light down a hallway lined with framed certificates and family photos that look too normal to belong to a monster. Flashlights sweep over beige carpet, over a crocheted throw blanket, over a coffee table arranged like a showroom, and for a half-second the scene is almost ridiculous, like the wrong address, like a mistake, until the first deputy rounds the corner and sees him. Wallace Klein is standing barefoot in the kitchen, hands raised, wearing flannel pajama pants and the calm, offended expression of a man who has spent decades practicing innocence in the mirror. He's older now, late 60s, hair thin to silver at the sides, belly soft under a plain white t-shirt, but his eyes are the same kind of eyes that don't blink often enough. He doesn't ask what this is about. He doesn't say, "You've got the wrong guy." He just tilts his head slightly and gives a thin smile that makes the room feel smaller. "You boys are late," he says, like he's been expecting company. The deputies move fast anyway because training overrides weirdness, because you don't let the suspects set the tempo. Zip ties bite into wrists. A rights card is read. The house is secured room by room, closet by closet, under beds, behind shower curtains. The older detective, Rourke, dragged back from the quiet life he didn't deserve, stands in the doorway and watches Wallace like a man watching a trap he built years ago finally spring. Except the trap doesn't feel satisfying. Feels wrong. Feels like the moment before a snake strikes. Wallace glances at him, recognition flickering, and for a heartbeat it's like two timelines overlap. 1989 and now, a missing woman and a man who kept breathing. "Detective," Wallace says smoothly. "Retired, I heard." Rourke doesn't answer. He doesn't give Wallace the pleasure of conversation. He only nods toward the back rooms where techs are already setting up evidence tables. Gloves snapping over hands, cameras clicking, every motion documented because the past has a way of slithering out of paperwork gaps. They find the obvious things first. A shoebox full of old receipts. A drawer of tangled cables. A stack of VCR manuals and warranty cards. Then the less obvious things, the things that make the hairs on the back of a neck rise. A locked metal cabinet in a spare bedroom with a cheap padlock that looks like an afterthought, not a deterrent. They cut it. The door pops open. Inside, neatly stacked, are tapes. Not home movies. Not children's birthdays. Not vacation footage. Unlabeled VHS cassettes. Dozens. Some wrapped in plastic. Some with masking tape labels that have been peeled away. Some with dates written in faded marker that stops halfway. Like the writer got interrupted. An evidence tech lifts one carefully, as if the plastic might bite. Another photographs the whole shelf from multiple angles. Rourke leans in and sees the same scratch numbering pattern as the estate tape, the same compulsive marking, ownership disguised as organization. Wallace watches from the kitchen doorway, still cuffed, still calm, only his jaw tightening a fraction, the first crack in the porcelain. "Those are old," he says. "I repair VCRs. People leave tapes." Nobody responds. The search keeps moving because lies don't slow a warrant. In the garage they find a workbench with scorch marks and solder drips, a graveyard of electronics. And in a drawer beneath a pile of dull screwdrivers sits a compact camcorder, outdated, heavy, the kind that makes your shoulder ache after an hour. It has a strip of black electrical tape around the grip, and the tape is worn exactly where fingers would hold it. It looks used. It looks loved. A deputy calls out, voice controlled but strained. "Detective Rourke, you need to see this." It's the watch band. Not on Wallace's wrist now. He's cuffed, stripped of accessories, but in a small plastic bag in a dresser drawer. A bright band with a distinctive clasp, almost neon even in the harsh beam of a flashlight. The same glint that flashed on the grainy tape. The same shape. It's not proof by itself. Nothing ever is. But it's a rhyme. It's the kind of rhyme that makes a cold case start to talk. They bag it, tag it, photograph it. The ritual of modern policing trying to make up for the sloppy ghosts of the past. And then under the bed in the master bedroom, behind boxes of Christmas decorations and old fishing magazines, they find a smaller box, plain cardboard, taped shut with the kind of careful double-layered wrapping that screams intention. A tech slices it open. Inside, a folded stack of newspaper clippings, crisped at the edges by time, every headline about Marlene Sykes, every photo of her smiling, every update that promised progress and delivered none. Under the clippings, sealed in a plastic sleeve, is a single strand of blonde hair, pinned like a specimen. Under that, a key ring with one key, old brass, labeled in tiny letters, S. The room goes silent again, but it's a different silence now. It's not anticipation. It's nausea. Rourke stares at the clippings and feels his own heartbeat in his teeth. A man doesn't keep newspaper stories about a missing woman unless the story belongs to him, unless he authored it, unless he's been reading the town's grief like a bedtime story for years, turning pages, smiling, sleeping fine. Wallace's eyes flick toward the box and then away, as if refusing to acknowledge it will make it disappear. He swallows once. The mask is slipping, but only slightly, like a professional performer adjusting under stage lights. Souvenirs, a younger deputy mutters before he can stop himself. Rourke looks at him sharply. No commentary, he says. Not because it's wrong, but because words can poison a case. Because the system that failed Marlene once will jump at any excuse to fail her again. They take Wallace in without drama. No fight. No tears. No denials shouted to the sky. Just a quiet ride in the back of an unmarked car while dawn starts to pale the eastern edge of the world. Outside, neighbors gather at the ends of driveways in robes and flip-flops, phones raised like offerings. The shock runs through them like electricity. This is happening here, this is happening to us, this is happening now. A woman whispers, "That's Mr. Klein." And the name tastes strange in her mouth, like she's been saying it wrong her whole life. At the station, the interview room hums with fluorescent light. Wallace sits with his cuffed hands on the table, posture relaxed, shoulders loose, like he's waiting for a customer to show up with a broken radio. He asks for water. He asks for a lawyer. He asks, almost casually, if anyone has told the Sykes family yet. The way he says it is wrong. Too interested. Too intimate. Rourke watches him through the glass and feels something old and hot rise in his chest, something that has nothing to do with procedure and everything to do with rage. But rage doesn't solve cases. Evidence does. And now, finally, evidence is crawling out of the dark. The tapes are logged one by one. Every cassette is photographed, numbered, stored. Techs set up a playback station in a controlled room, chain of custody documented down to the minute. A prosecutor shows up, face pale, eyes hungry, and reminds everyone that a raid is only the beginning. What matters is what holds in court. What matters is what can be proven without a single weak link. The first tape they play from Wallace's cabinet is not Marlene. Not immediately. It's footage of a street corner at night, shaky and voyeuristic, lingering on a woman walking alone, then cutting abruptly when headlights swing into frame. The second tape is a parking lot. The third is a beach access path. All Florida. All at night. All framed the same way. Distance, concealment, obsession. Someone filmed these women like prey. Someone practiced. By the fourth tape, an evidence tech has to step out and breathe into her hands. By the fifth, a supervisor orders breaks every 20 minutes, because even seasoned deputies have limits, because watching a predator's gaze is its own kind of contamination. And then they find it. Another angle of the restaurant parking lot. Another night. Another view of the dumpster corner. The image pulses with static, but the shape is unmistakable. Denim jacket. Slender shoulders. Hair loose. A woman turning as if she heard something behind her. The camera zooms slightly, hungry, clumsy. The audio catches a small sound. Maybe a laugh, maybe a startled inhale. And then a male voice, close again, murmuring something that makes the room feel like it tilts. Not a name. Not a threat. A phrase almost tender. Almost mocking. Like a lover's whisper delivered with a knife behind the back. The tape cuts. Rewinds. Cuts again. Rourke doesn't blink. He can't. He watches as if staring hard enough will punch a hole through time. The prosecutor leans forward, elbows on knees, eyes glossy. A younger detective whispers, "Oh my God." And nobody corrects him, because there's nothing to correct. There's only that moment Marlene alive on screen, alive in the only way she's been alive to the system for decades. As a blur, a shadow, a case number. They pause on a frame where the camera dips toward the ground, and there, sharp for half a second, is a reflection in the rear window of a parked car. The outline of the cameraman's head, the slope of his shoulders, the glint at his wrist, the shape of his mouth when he speaks. It's not enough to ID someone in a vacuum, but it's enough when paired with a watch band in a drawer, a camcorder under tools, a cabinet of tapes, a box of clippings, a key labeled S. The case starts to move like a machine that's finally been oiled. Then the next shock hits, not from Wallace's house, not from the tapes, but from the place nobody wants to look, the old evidence records. The logs from 1989. The chain of custody forms. The dispatch notes. The detective reports typed on yellowing paper. A records clerk pulls out the binder, flips through and frowns at a missing entry. An evidence number that exists without an item attached. A reference to video media. In a supplemental note with no corresponding evidence tag. It's like finding a footprint that stops in midair. They dig deeper. They call in an internal investigator. A captain who has been quiet for years suddenly starts sweating. Names are whispered in hallways, names of deputies who worked nights back then. Names now retired, dead, moved away. And the woman who found the estate tape, who thought she was just cleaning out her father's life, gets another call. This time not to thank her, not to update her, but to ask her questions that make her sit down hard in a chair. Did your father ever mention Marlene Sykes? Did he ever bring work home? Did he ever own a camcorder? Did he ever seem worried near the end? Because the hidden tape didn't just reopen a cold case. It reopened a wound inside the department itself. It raised the question that can burn a badge to ash. If this footage existed back then, if someone saw it, if someone touched it, why was it not used? Why was it not logged? Why was it wrapped in a towel in a deputy's house like contraband? And in the middle of that question sits a terrifying possibility, pulsing like a bruise. Someone protected Wallace Klein. Someone sat on evidence. Someone decided that the truth was too messy, too embarrassing, too dangerous, and they chose silence instead. Chose convenience instead. Chose the kind of loyalty that turns justice into a private club. Rourke hears the whispers and feels the floor shift under his feet. He remembers that first search, that dog barking near the dumpsters, that pocket knife in the sand, that feeling that something was off and he couldn't name it. He remembers how quickly certain leads were dismissed, how certain doors stayed closed. He remembers a deputy back then, quiet, reliable, who always offered to handle the tapes, who said he had the right equipment, who said, "I'll take care of it." The same deputy whose daughter found the vis wrapped in a towel. The building feels colder than it should. Rourke stares at the interview room where Wallace sits, lawyered up now, expression smug again, and realizes the case has layers: predator, victim, town, time. But also something worse. Rot. Rot that might have started inside the very hands meant to stop men like Wallace. Outside, the sun rises on Florida like nothing happened, bright and indifferent. Cars move. People buy coffee. Kids catch buses. And somewhere in that ordinary morning, Marlene's sister gets a call she's been waiting for since 1989. A call that doesn't bring closure, doesn't bring peace, but brings something sharp and real: movement. A suspect in custody. Evidence recovered. A tape that proves, at minimum, what she screamed into deaf ears all those years ago: Marlene didn't just leave. Something took her. And now the town that tried to forget is forced to remember every detail it buried. Because the midnight raid wasn't the end of the story. It was the first loud crack in a wall that had been hiding the truth for decades, and what's behind that wall is starting to breathe. Rain starts falling the next morning, not the soft kind that rinses the air, but the heavy, sudden Florida kind that drowns everything in seconds, drumming on squad car roofs, spilling from gutters, washing the dust off 34 years of silence. Inside the sheriff's department, it smells like coffee, toner, and wet uniforms. Every conversation is low and fast, like people are afraid the walls are listening. Evidence texts shuffle through stacks of tapes, each marked, bagged, numbered. The hum of the playback machines fills the air like static. A screen flickers. Another tape whirs. Somewhere down the hallway, a printer spits out transcripts of the footage frame by frame, time-coded, every flicker of light turned into words that can be entered into court. Detective Hank Rourke stands by the window, watching the rain trail down the glass in crooked lines. He hasn't slept. His reflection looks like it belongs to someone else. A man dragged back into a nightmare he thought he'd buried. Behind him, younger officers whisper about the deputy whose daughter found the tape, about old corruption, about cover-ups. None of them say it out loud, but the thought hangs there. If the department buried evidence once, how deep does that grave go? Rourke turns when the prosecutor steps in. Assistant State Attorney Linda Morales, sharp suit, sharper eyes, voice like it could cut through marble. She drops a folder on the desk with a sound that feels like punctuation. Preliminary forensic results, she says. The hair found in the box, DNA confirms female, mitochondrial match to Marlene Sykes' mother. Silence folds over the room. Rourke exhales through his nose, a sound halfway between relief and grief. So she was in his house. Morales nods once. At some point. We can't date when, but the contact's real. The hair wasn't environmental. It was sealed. Rourke rubs the back of his neck, feels the stiffness there like guilt made physical. He kept it as a trophy. Morales doesn't answer. She doesn't need to. Then quieter. And the key labeled S? Doesn't match any of Klein's properties. Locksmith says it's an older model, could fit a storage unit, maybe even a lockbox from the late 80s. Rourke's mind starts turning gears it thought had rusted shut. He had a repair shop back then. Did anyone check if he rented storage under a different name? Already on it, she says. We subpoenaed old business records from the county archives. But here's the twist, his old landlord's dead. No surviving lease files. The building got sold, torn down, replaced by condos. He stares at the rain again. So whatever was in there is gone. Maybe not, Morales says, flipping the folder open to a photocopy of a handwritten invoice. Found this in the estate tape box. It was folded behind the towel. Date: August 14, 1989.
Signature: V. Klein.
Payment: 1 month's rent for a unit at Coastal Mini Storage, Lot 12B. That facility's still standing. Rourke straightens. The fatigue in his shoulders shifts into focus. You're kidding. I don't joke about warrants, Morales says. We're going there at noon. Outside, thunder rolls like a drumline announcing the dead's return. The drive to Coastal Mini Storage is short, but every mile feels heavy. The convoy, 3 cruisers and 1 unmarked sedan, cuts through sheets of rain that turn the highway into a mirror. The facility appears through mist like something half forgotten. Chain-link fence, faded sign, rows of green metal doors slick with water. The air smells like rust and wet concrete. An old manager meets them at the gate, shoulders hunched, ball cap pulled low. Unit 12B? He says, checking his clipboard. Yeah, that one's been locked up for years. Paid in cash until 90, then went delinquent. We couldn't auction it. There was a hold on it. Sheriff's order back then. Never lifted. Rourke exchanges a glance with Morales. Whose signature? The man squints at the faded notation. Deputy F. Sykes. The name hits like a body blow. Marlene's father. Rourke's stomach knots. He was on the force. The manager shrugs helplessly. I just keep the lights on. They move down the corridor between units, boots splashing through puddles, the metal walls amplifying every sound. Unit 12B waits at the far end, padlock red with rust, a thin layer of cobwebs bridging the handle. The locksmith crouches, drills, twists, and the lock pops with a metallic gasp. Rourke pulls the door up. The smell hits first, mildew, oil, and something dry and chemical like old film stock. Inside it's dark. Flashlights click on, beams cutting through dust motes that look like falling ash. Against the back wall, a workbench. A folding chair. A small refrigerator buzzing faintly even though no power runs to the unit. On the table, stacked in careful rows, are more VHS tapes. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Each one labeled the same way. A date. A location. Nothing else. Rourke's throat tightens. Morales murmurs. Jesus. An evidence tech begins photographing everything, methodical, gloved hands shaking slightly. Another opens a cardboard box on the floor. Inside, sealed plastic bags. Women's items. Jewelry. Hair clips. A watch with initials engraved on the back. One shoe, white leather, cracked from age. Rourke recognizes it instantly from an old photograph. A crime scene shot that never left his mind. Marlene's left shoe. Found near the canal. The match is exact. The air turns dense, almost liquid. Someone whispers, "We've got him." But Rourke doesn't answer because something about this doesn't fit. If the unit was under Marlene's father's name, how did Wallace Klein get access? Unless someone gave it to him or someone else was using the same unit all along. He steps closer to the workbench. There's an envelope sitting there, brittle with age, corners curled. The ink has bled in places, but the handwriting is careful, deliberate. He opens it slowly. Inside is a short letter on yellowed stationery. "If you're reading this, I couldn't stop it. He said she went willingly. I know that's a lie. They'll protect him because he fixes their toys because he knows how to listen.
I'm sorry.
No signature. Just the initial F." Rourke's heart thuds once heavy. Morales he knew. Her father knew. She takes the paper, scanning fast, lips tightening. You think he tried to come forward? Maybe. Maybe he was going to turn it in and got shut down. Or maybe he was scared. She looks around the dim unit, the metal walls sweating condensation. Scared of who? Rourke doesn't answer. He's already thinking of the missing evidence tag. The video media entry with no item attached. Someone in the department didn't just look away. Someone intervened. Someone close enough to both men to make the impossible believable. They bag everything. The tapes, the letter, the relics. The rain eases as they finish, the air thick with ozone. By the time they load the last evidence crate into the van, the clouds are thinning, and sunlight glints off puddles like shards of glass. But the brightness feels wrong. Feels intrusive. Back at headquarters, the playback begins again. One by one, the new tapes reveal their ghosts. Some are blank. Some are distorted. Some show streets, beaches, parking lots. Nothing obvious. But one, labeled simply June 15, 1989 dockside, opens to a familiar view. The restaurant parking lot, the same sodium lights, the same dumpsters. A minute in, a figure moves through the frame, female, slender, carrying a purse. Marlene. She's pacing, nervous. A car pulls up. Not her car. Bigger. A van, maybe white. The door opens. A shape steps out, male, tall, a cap pulled low. They talk. He gestures towards something off camera. She hesitates. Then she walks closer. The tape skips, static bursts across the screen, then returns just in time to show the van door closing. The engine revs. The frame wobbles. The camera turns, almost like it's filming through a mirror. And in the reflection of the restaurant's window, they see the man's face for one heartbeat. Not Wallace Klein. Someone else. The room erupts, voices overlapping, chairs scraping. Rourke leans in, eyes narrowing. The image is faint but enough. Dark hair, mustache, badge glinting on his belt. The resemblance punches through decades of memory. Morales whispers, "That's a deputy." Rourke nods slow. Frederick Sykes. Her father. The words hang in the air like smoke. It doesn't make sense. It can't. But the frame doesn't lie. The reflection is clear enough to match his build, his badge position, even the old service revolver grip that was department issue in the late 80s. The tape keeps running. The camera shakes. There's movement inside the van, a muffled cry, then static again. When the picture returns, the van is gone, leaving only the shimmer of heat on asphalt and an empty lot. No one speaks for a full 30 seconds. Finally, Morales breaks the silence. Could the footage be manipulated? Analog, says a tech. No sign of digital tampering. But someone could have filmed through glass. Layered reflection. It's possible we're seeing the cameraman reflected behind. Meaning the deputy wasn't in front of the camera, he was holding it. Rourke's pulse kicks. So either her father filmed it or someone wearing his badge did. And if the letter in the unit was from him, he said she went willingly, then maybe he was being blackmailed. Maybe Wallace wasn't alone. Maybe the Real story is a partnership gone wrong. A cover-up built on fear. Morales steps back, arms folded, eyes distant. If that's true, the question is why the department protected Klein, not Sykes. Rourke knows why. The department eats its own when convenient. Sykes was disposable. Klein was useful. Klein fixed their radios, their tape decks, their cruiser cameras. He knew how to erase things. He knew how to make ghosts. By nightfall, word leaks. The raid, the tapes, the arrest, someone posts it all online, and by midnight the headlines hit national news. Florida 1989 cold case explodes. Evidence links deputy to disappearance. Cameras swarm the courthouse steps. Reporters shout questions at anyone leaving the building. The town's name becomes a trending hashtag, another synonym for secrets uncovered too late. At home, Marlene's sister watches the footage on television, trembling. She's older now, hair streaked with gray, voice hoarse from years of fighting to be believed. The anchor says words like breakthrough, closure, justice, but they don't sound right. Nothing about this feels like justice. It feels like someone opened a grave in her living room. She turns off the TV. The silence that follows is worse. Meanwhile, in the holding cell, Wallace Klein sits on the bench, staring at his reflection in the scratched metal toilet lid. He's humming under his breath. A low, tuneless hum that makes the guard shift uneasily. He stops only when Rourke steps into the doorway. "They found your storage unit," Rourke says. Klein smiles faintly. "You mean his storage unit?" "You were both in it," Rourke says. "Different ghosts, same room." "Ghosts don't scare me," Klein replies softly. "They only scare the living." Rourke leans closer. "Tell me about the tape." For a moment, Klein looks almost amused. "Which one?" "The one with her. The night she vanished." A slow shrug. "You've already seen it." "Then tell me who filmed it." Klein meets his eyes, the smirk fading, something colder settling in. "You wouldn't believe me." "Try me." Klein's voice drops to a whisper. "You think the monsters live in dark rooms with cameras. But sometimes, detective, the camera's just a mirror. Point it at the wrong man, and you'll see the one who built the cage." Rourke stares at him, trying to read the madness, the calculation. "That's supposed to mean something?" Klein smiles again, showing too many teeth. "You'll figure it out when you find the rest of the tapes." "The rest?" Klein chuckles quietly. "You think I only kept what was hers?" He leans back against the wall, closes his eyes, and starts humming again. The same low tune looping steady like rain on a roof. Outside, lightning crawls across the clouds, illuminating the parking lot in flashes. Rourke steps into the storm, letting the rain soak through his shirt, trying to wash the smell of old film and rot from his skin. But the sound of that hum follows him out, thin and persistent, threading through the thunder. He realizes then what truly terrifies him. Not what's on the tapes they've found, but what might still be missing. The pattern that might stretch back farther than 1989. The faces that might never have been reported missing at all. And somewhere in that noise of rain and thunder, he swears he hears another voice, faint, distorted, echoing through decades, asking the same question he's been afraid to face since the night he first saw Marlene's car under those lights. How many others? The town doesn't wake up into closure. It wakes up into sirens, camera crews, and the sickening realization that the Florida 1989 cold case didn't just reopen. It detonated. The kind of blast that doesn't throw shrapnel outward so much as rip the floorboards up from under everyone who thought they were standing on solid ground. People step outside in the morning and feel it immediately. The air is the same humid Florida air. But the neighborhood looks different, as if every house is suddenly a potential crime scene. Every friendly wave suddenly a disguise. On Shoreline Drive, curtains twitch. At the dockside restaurant, staff stare at the parking lot like it's haunted. The dumpsters are still there. The sodium lights still buzz. But now everyone sees what they didn't want to see. That a woman vanished here and somebody watched it happen, filmed it happen, kept it. Inside the sheriff's office, it's worse. The building feels like it's shrinking. Every hallway has two conversations. One spoken, one unspoken. The spoken one is warrants and chain of custody and, "We need this by end of day." The unspoken one is poison. Who knew? Who touched that tape in 1989? Who decided it didn't belong in evidence? Who signed the hold on a storage unit under a missing woman's father's name, and then never lifted it, like a secret locked behind a padlock and left to rot? Rourke sits at a table covered in printouts, freeze frames, enhanced stills taped to cardboard like some obsessive shrine. He's staring at the reflection shot again, the one that looks like Deputy Frederick Sykes, Marlene's father, badge glinting at the belt line, face caught for a heartbeat in glass. The image is grainy, but it's enough to hurt. Enough to make the mind do backflips trying to land on something that makes sense. A father. A deputy. A man who wore a uniform that was supposed to keep his daughter safe. And if it's really him, the story stops being a straightforward predator and victim nightmare and turns into something fouler. A family tragedy braided into a departmental cover-up. A missing girl swallowed by the people who promised to look for her. The prosecutor, Morales, runs the case like a pressure cooker. She knows the defense will go after every weakness. Old evidence. Lost paperwork. Dead witnesses. She knows the word reasonable doubt is the last refuge of the guilty, and this case is a museum of doubt. So she pushes. She orders every tape duplicated, every frame logged, every whisper in the audio cleaned until it can be played in a courtroom without sounding like a ghost story. She calls in a forensic audio analyst, one of those specialists who can separate a voice from hiss the way a surgeon separates tissue from tumor. They isolate Wallace Klein's whisper from the estate tape. They run it against his interview room voice. They find similarities in cadence, the way certain consonants bite, the way vowels flatten. They don't call it a match yet. Science doesn't play like that, but they call it consistent. Consistent is a small word with teeth. Then they pull something else from the new storage unit tapes. Another voice, faint, off-camera, caught in the background of a street recording, a man laughing like he's telling a joke to himself. It's brief. It's distorted. But it's there. They flag it. The analyst listens with headphones on, eyes narrowed, like he's staring into a dark waterline waiting for something to surface. When he finally speaks, it's cautious. That's not Klein, he says. That's someone else. Different throat resonance. Different speech pattern. Rourke feels his spine tighten. Morales's pen pauses above her legal pad. A second voice means a second person, and a second person means the nightmare is not confined to one house, one camcorder, one cabinet of tapes. A second person means the question isn't just, did the department fail? It becomes, did the department participate? Internal Affairs arrives like a storm front, crisp suits and hard eyes, no warmth, no hometown loyalty. They don't care about the town's shock. They care about the institution's survival. They pull old rosters from 1989. They pull shift schedules. They pull dispatch logs. They build a list of every deputy on duty the night Marlene disappeared, every supervisor who signed off on reports, every person who ever stepped into the evidence room when video media was mentioned on paper but never found its way into a sealed bag. The list is longer than anyone wants. Some names are dead. Some are living in other counties, other states, retired and fat and comfortable. Some are still here, still wearing badges, still walking these halls with faces carefully blank. When the interviews begin, the department becomes a house of mirrors. Every answer reflects back a question. No, I don't remember. No, I never saw a tape. No, I wasn't in evidence that week. No, I didn't know Klein like that. But memory is selective. It always is. The truth is, everyone remembers Wallace Klein. The electronics guy. The helpful guy. The guy who fixed cruiser radios when they crackled, who installed VCRs in patrol cars when the department was trying to modernize, who did it cheap, who did it fast, who smiled and called deputies sir like it meant something. He was around. He had access. He was useful. And useful people get close without being noticed. Morales meets Rourke in a cramped office, papers stacked like a fortress. We need to know everything about Frederick Sykes, she says, voice low. Not the myth. Not the grieving father story. The real file. Rourke's jaw works. His personnel record will be sealed. It won't be sealed from a subpoena, Morales says. And it won't be sealed from public pressure once the media smells blood. Public pressure is already boiling. Outside the courthouse, protesters gather. Some carry signs with Marlene's face printed on them, her smile now weaponized into accusation. Some carry signs that say clean house and who protected him. The crowd is angry in different directions. One group wants Wallace Klein's head on a spike. Another wants the sheriff to resign. Another wants the entire department audited, stripped down, rebuilt. A few, quieter, whisper about Marlene's father with a kind of cautious pity that feels almost like betrayal. The town splits, not neatly but jaggedly like cracked glass. Rourke digs anyway. He pulls archived files from a warehouse that smells like dust and mildew and forgotten scandals. He opens a box labeled Psychs F and finds a neat stack of evaluations, commendations, one reprimand for unprofessional conduct that's been clipped and stapled like someone wanted it hidden without actually hiding it. He reads the reprimand twice. It's vague. Inappropriate relationship with civilian. No name. No details. Just a warning, and then a note that says matter resolved. Resolved how? In the same box, buried under routine paperwork, is something that doesn't belong. A photocopy of a repair invoice from Klein Electronics for installation services, dated weeks before Marlene vanished. The item line reads, Vehicle Video System Calibration. The client name is missing, but the signature at the bottom is unmistakable. Frederick Sykes. Rourke's mouth goes dry. Morales stares at the paper when he shows her, eyes narrowing. So Klein was working on department equipment. And Sykes was dealing with him directly, Rourke says. Or privately, Morales replies. Off the books. They build a timeline like a skeleton. June 15, 1989. Marlene disappears. Summer 1989. Klein rents storage. August 1989. The invoice in the estate tape box. Somewhere in that same window. The video media. Note with no evidence tag. And then months later, Frederick Sykes, Marlene's father, dies in a single car crash on a rain-slick road. Officially ruled an accident, quietly filed away because grieving fathers aren't supposed to die suspiciously. But now, with all this on the table, the crash looks different. The crash looks like an exit. Morales doesn't say murder out loud. She doesn't have to. The way she looks at Rourke says it for her. They track down the old crash report. The photographs are faded but still sharp enough to cut. A smashed sedan wrapped around a pine tree. Skid marks. No other vehicle noted. No alcohol in the system. The report mentions a witness. An anonymous caller who phoned in the crash but didn't stay on scene. No name recorded. No follow-up. A ghost witness for a ghost death. Rourke feels anger rise again. Not hot this time but cold, dense, heavy. He thinks of all the times the system shrugged and moved on. He thinks of how easy it is to file tragedy into a drawer and call it done. He thinks of a father who may have known too much, who may have been trapped in something he couldn't confess without destroying himself, who may have tried to leave breadcrumbs in a storage unit like a message in a bottle thrown into time. The next move is obvious. If there were dozens of tapes at Klein's house, and dozens more in the unit, there's a system. A catalog. A logic. Predators aren't chaotic the way movies pretend. The worst ones are organized. They keep score. They label. They remember. Which means somewhere there's a master list, a ledger, a notebook, a code. They search Klein's property again with a fresh warrant. This time they don't just look for physical trophies. They look for paper. They look for patterns. They pull floor vents. They tap walls. They bring in a K9 train for human remains and another train for electronics, because sometimes what you're hiding isn't a body. It's a hard drive, a tape, a secret sealed inside drywall. In the attic they find insulation and rat droppings and nothing. In the crawl space they find damp earth and spiderwebs and a foul smell that turns out to be a dead raccoon. Frustration crackles. The kind of frustration that makes people sloppy. Morales reminds them sharp. Don't get sloppy. Sloppy is how this case died the first time. Then an evidence tech, crawling hands and knees along the underside of the master bedroom floor, sees something that doesn't match. A newer plank. Different nails. A slight gap where wood meets wood. She calls it in. A supervisor crawls over. They pry carefully, slow like defusing a bomb. Under the plank is a hollow space no one would notice unless they knew exactly where to press. Inside sits a metal cash box, the kind you buy at a hardware store, paint-chipped, dented at one corner. The key isn't in the house, so they cut it open in the evidence room under cameras and witnesses. Inside, cash yellowed and stale-smelling. A stack of IDs, driver's licenses, some Florida, some out of state, women's faces staring up with frozen smiles. A roll of 35mm film in a plastic canister. And a notebook, small black, the kind that fits in a pocket. Rourke flips it open and feels his throat tighten. Because the pages aren't filled with diary entries or poetry. They're filled with numbers. Dates. Initials. Locations. Short notes that look like logistics. June 15, 89 dockside. S present. June 16, 89. Move to mangrove. June 19, 89. Keep quiet. Fix equipment. Morales leans in, eyes scanning, lips pulling tight as if she's trying not to show emotion in front of the room. Mangrove, she repeats. Move to mangrove. Florida is nothing but mangroves. They line canals. They choke shorelines. They hide everything. A body can disappear in a mangrove swamp the way a lie disappears in bureaucracy. Quietly, thoroughly, and forever. Rourke turns another page. More entries. More initials. Not just S. Other letters too.
BJ.
A roster and code. He points at B. Who's B? A deputy mutters. Captain Barlow's first name is. Don't, Morales snaps, cutting him off. But it's too late. The name is already in the room. Already crawling into people's minds like a cockroach into a crack. Captain Barlow is respected. Long career. Civic awards. Rotary Club handshake. The kind of man who gives speeches about community trust. The kind of man who would never, in a clean story, appear in the margins of a notebook pulled from a predator's floorboards. Rourke feels the floor shift again. This is bigger than Klein. Bigger than one corrupt deputy. The notebook is either the key to the whole rot, or a trap. A deliberate smear designed to drag others into the fire when Klein finally burned. They need corroboration. They need something that isn't just ink. So they send teams into the mangroves. The first search is careful. Boats sliding through narrow channels. Deputies and waiters moving slow through knee-deep mud. Mosquitoes swarming like black smoke. The smell is thick, salt, decay, vegetation, stagnant water. Every sound is amplified. A splash could be a fish. Or a gator. Or something shifting under the surface that should not shift. They mark coordinates that match the notebook's crude references. Old pilings. Dead palm. 2 bends east. The kind of directions only someone familiar with the waterways would write. The kind of directions a boat worker might know. The kind of directions a deputy who patrolled the coast might know. The kind of directions that turn the landscape into a map of concealment. Hours pass. They find bones, but they're animal. They find trash bottles, rusted cans, a sneaker that's modern. They find a tarp half buried. But when they pull it free, it's empty, ripped, useless. The sun slides down and turns the water copper. And still there's no body, no definitive proof. Only mud and insects and the constant feeling that something is watching from the tree line. Then, just as they're about to call it for the night, a deputy's boot catches on something hard under the muck. He freezes. He kneels. He reaches down with gloved hands and pulls up a small object coated in black slime. A charm bracelet. Silver, tarnished, delicate. One charm shaped like a tiny anchor. Another like a heart. Another engraved with a name. Marlene. The deputy's breath catches. The air seems to stop moving. Rourke takes the bracelet carefully, holding it like it might shatter into dust. And for a second the case becomes heartbreakingly simple again. A woman had a life, had small things she wore, small things she loved, and those small things ended up in a swamp because someone decided she was disposable. Morales swallows hard. Bag it, she says, voice tight. Photograph the exact location. Mark it. We're not leaving until we grid this entire area. Lightning flickers far off over the water, silent at first. Then thunder follows like a warning. The storm is coming back, rolling in with that familiar Florida aggression, and the search team moves faster, driven by the fear that the weather will erase everything again the way time already tried to. Back at the station, while the mangrove search continues, Wallace Klein sits in his cell and listens to the building's distant activity like a man listening to music. He hasn't asked for TV. He hasn't asked for a phone call beyond his lawyer. He just sits and hums occasionally, that low tuneless sound like a lullaby for the dead. Rourke stands outside the bars and watches him. We found your notebook. Klein's eyes lift slowly, almost bored. Did you? You're not the only name in it, Rourke says. Klein smiles in a way that doesn't touch his eyes. No, he whispers. I was never the only one. Who is S? Rourke demands, even though the answer is already poisoning his mouth. Klein tilts his head. You think I wrote letters in kindergarten form? S could be anyone. You wrote S present on the night she vanished. Klein's smile widens just a fraction. Present, he repeats softly. Such a polite word. Like a guest at a party. Rourke grips the bars, knuckles whitening. You're enjoying this. Klein's eyes gleam. Enjoy, he murmurs. No, detective. I'm finally being listened to. Rourke forces himself to breathe, to step back, to remember Morales's warning. Don't get sloppy. Sloppy kills cases. Sloppy lets monsters walk. He turns away before anger makes him say something irreversible. Outside, the storm breaks again. Rain hammering the parking lot, washing the town in sheets. News vans sit like vultures under umbrellas. Protesters chant through the downpour. And somewhere in the mangroves, under roots that twist like fingers, the earth is starting to give up pieces of the truth. Small at first, like a bracelet, like a whisper, but enough to promise that whatever happened in 1989 didn't stay buried by accident. It stayed buried because someone worked very hard to keep it that way. And now the shovel is hitting something solid beneath the mud. Something that might finally answer the question that has been echoing through this community for decades, louder than any thunder. Not just who took Marlene Sykes, but who helped, who watched, and who signed the silence into place. The bracelet sits under fluorescent light in a clear evidence bag. Beads of swamp water still clinging to the tarnished silver like the mangroves refuse to let go. It should be a small thing, almost nothing, the kind of jewelry you'd lose in a couch cushion. But inside this building, inside this reopened Florida 1989 cold case, it feels like a gunshot that hasn't finished echoing. Marlene. Engraved clean. The letters don't care about theories or timelines or paperwork. The letters don't argue. They just exist, stubborn and undeniable, dragged out of black mud and laid on a stainless steel table like a dare. Rourke watches an evidence tech photograph it from every angle, ruler beside it, gloved hands rotating the bag. Click, click, click. He can hear the storm outside, the second wave of rain battering the roof, and for a moment the rhythm is almost hypnotic, like the town itself is trying to wash away what they're doing. Like Florida wants its secrets back. Morales stands beside him, eyes fixed on the bracelet, jaw tight enough to crack. We can't just have this, she says quietly. We need a body. We need a cause. We need something that survives a defense attorney waving 34 years in the jury's face. A body might not exist, Rourke mutters. Morales's gaze flicks to him. A jury wants certainty. A swamp doesn't give it, he says, and hates how flat his voice sounds, like he's already preparing for failure. They move fast anyway. The mangrove site gets turned into a grid, the kind of meticulous search the department should have done back when Marlene was still a fresh face on a missing poster instead of a ghost in a file. Deputies mark trees with fluorescent tape. They prod mud with poles. They rake through root tangles that grab at sleeves and ankles like hands. Mosquitoes swarm relentless, drilling through repellent and patience. Every few minutes someone calls out a find. Another piece of metal, another scrap of fabric, another half-buried object that makes hearts jump and then sag when it turns out to be modern trash. The weather is a bully. Rain comes hard, then stops, then comes again. Lightning flashes over the water, bleaching everything white for a heartbeat, turning every face into a mask. Gators slide away in slow, silent arcs. The air tastes like salt and rot. And beneath it all is the same thought repeating like a pulse. She was here. She was here. She was here. Back at headquarters, the notebook from under Klein's floorboards gets copied, digitized, analyzed like scripture. Every date circled. Every initial highlighted. Every location reference mapped. Morales wants to treat it like a blueprint. Internal Affairs wants to treat it like a bomb. The sheriff wants to treat it like it doesn't exist. Rourke sits in a cramped room with an IA investigator named Caldwell, who looks like he hasn't smiled since the Reagan administration. Caldwell slides a stack of personnel photos across the table. You tell me which initials fit, he says. Rourke stares at the photos. Deputies from 1989. Some young and cocky, some heavy-eyed even then. Faces that once filled squad rooms and bar stools. The list of initials, SBHJ, feels like a code that's been waiting decades for someone to finally solve it. S is Sykes, Rourke says, voice rough. If the reflection is real, if the invoice is real. Caldwell doesn't blink. And B. Rourke hesitates just long enough for the hesitation to become its own confession. Barlow, he says finally. Caldwell's pen makes a small, neat mark on his pad. Captain Barlow has an attorney already, he says, almost casually, and the words are a punch. That's how fast this is moving. Barlow knows. Rourke asks. Barlow has eyes, Caldwell replies. This town is chanting his name in the rain. Outside, the media frenzy grows teeth. The story spreads beyond the county, beyond Florida, into that national appetite for scandal. Cold case reopened, hidden tape, midnight raid, corrupt cops? Every headline sounds like a siren. Reporters camp at the sheriff's office. Protesters paint signs in their garages. People who never met Marlene Sykes speak her name like they own it. And in quiet kitchens, old residents call each other and whisper things they never said out loud before. About the way certain deputies used to linger at the dockside bar. About Wallace Klein's backroom friendships. About Frederick Sykes showing up drunk once and crying in the parking lot like something inside him was tearing itself apart. The department tries to lock the doors, but the past doesn't respect locks. Morales pushes for another interview with Klein. His lawyer fights it. Morales gets a court order anyway. Klein is escorted into the interview room in cuffs, calm as ever, hair neatly combed as if he's going to church. He sits and rests his hands on the table like a man about to negotiate a car price. Morales doesn't waste time. "We found your storage unit," she says. Klein's eyes flicker with something. Annoyance, amusement, hunger. "You found a room," he corrects softly. "Rooms belong to whoever has the key." "We found Marlene's bracelet in the mangroves," Morales continues. He tilts his head. "Did you? You wrote 'move to mangrove' in your notebook," she says, sliding a photocopy toward him. Klein glances down, then back up, smile faint. "That could mean anything. You're going to pretend you don't know your own handwriting?" Morales' voice sharpens. Klein's smile deepens as if she's giving him exactly what he wants. "Handwriting is such a fragile thing," he murmurs. "People imitate it. People forge it. People attribute it." Rourke watches from the corner, arms folded, fighting the urge to reach across the table and shake the truth out of him. He's seen liars, criminals, cowards. Klein is something else. Klein doesn't just lie. He performs. Morales leans in. "Tell me who S is." Klein's eyes sparkle. "You already have your story. Tell me," she repeats slower, like a judge. Klein shifts, almost bored. "S was present," he says, savoring the word like candy. "How many times do you want me to say it?" Morales' jaw tightens. "Was it Frederick Sykes?" Klein pauses. For the first time, his calm looks less like confidence and more like calculation. He glances at the mirrored glass, at the faint outline of observers. Then he smiles again. "Imagine," he says gently, "a father who can't stop hearing his daughter's voice. Imagine a deputy who knows what happens when you speak too loud. Imagine a man who wants to burn the world down and doesn't care what ashes he stands in." Rourke steps forward before he can stop himself. "You're trying to poison the well." Klein's eyes lock on him. "I'm holding up a mirror, detective," he whispers. "You just don't like what it shows." Morales slams a palm on the table. The sound cracks through the room. "Where is she, Wallace?" Klein doesn't flinch. "Which one?" he says again, soft as velvet. The room feels colder. Morales' face goes pale with fury. "Don't do that." Klein shrugs. "I didn't name them," he says. "I just recorded what already existed." Morales stares at him, breathing hard. Rourke sees it then. Klein isn't afraid of prison. Prison is just another room. Another place to be listened to. What he fears is irrelevance. Silence. Being forgotten. He wants to be the center of the story even now, even in chains. Morales changes tactics, voice suddenly low, almost conversational. "Your notebook has other initials," she says.
HJB.
"You want to talk about them? You want to trade?" Klein's smile twitches. A tiny crack. Not much, but enough to prove he's not invincible. "Trade," he repeats like the word itself is dirty. "You think you're bargaining in a market." "Talk," Morales says. "Help yourself." Klein leans back. The cuffs clink. "I helped myself for years," he murmurs. "Nobody stopped me." Rourke feels heat crawl up his neck. Because that's the worst part, Klein isn't wrong. He wasn't stopped. He was allowed. Hours later, A lab call comes in that makes every hair on Rourke's arms rise. The bracelet has biological material trapped under one of the charms, skin cells degraded but present. The preliminary DNA profile is consistent with Marlene's maternal line. Consistent. That word again. It's not a full match, not the kind you frame and hang on a wall. But it's enough to make the bracelet more than jewelry. It's enough to make it an artifact of contact, of struggle, of skin against metal in a moment nobody should ever have to imagine. Morales stares at the report and nods once. "We're closer," she says. Caldwell from IA doesn't look relieved. He looks grim. "Closer to what?" he mutters. "A conviction or a civil war?" Because the department is tearing at the seams. Captain Barlow doesn't show up to work. He calls in medical leave. His attorney releases a statement claiming harassment, presumption of guilt, political witch hunt. The sheriff holds a press conference under bright lights, sweat shining on his forehead, and promises transparency while his eyes flick away from questions about the missing tape, the storage unit hold, the deputy father, the notebook under the floor. Reporters press harder. Did your department suppress evidence in 1989? Did a deputy participate in a kidnapping? Is Captain Barlow under investigation? The sheriff's answers are rehearsed, slippery, useless. The crowd boos. The cameras zoom in on his mouth as if the truth might fall out between his teeth. That night, Rourke gets a call that makes his stomach drop. "You need to come to Barlow's house," a deputy says. "Now." The drive is fast, rain streaking the windshield like scratches on old film. Flashing lights reflect off wet pavement. Neighbors gather again, same robes, same phones, same hungry fear. Barlow's house is bigger than Klein's, cleaner, manicured lawn. American flag hanging stiff in the damp air. The front door stands open. Inside, the smell is sharp. Gun oil and something metallic. Deputies move through the rooms, voices low. Rourke follows the sound into the study. Captain Barlow is slumped in his desk chair, head tilted to one side. A pistol rests on the carpet near his right hand. The wall behind him bears a dark stain. Papers are scattered across the desk like someone cleared space for a final act. A framed photo of Barlow receiving an award is tipped face down, glass cracked. A medic checks and shakes his head. Dead. Suicide, the scene screams. The simplest story. The easiest headline. But Rourke's eyes catch details that make his pulse jump. The angle of the gun. The lack of powder burns on the hand. The way the chair is positioned slightly off-center, as if moved after the fact. And on the desk, a single cassette tape in a plain sleeve, unmarked like a last message or bait. Morales arrives minutes later, face set, eyes scanning. She sees the tape and goes still. "Don't touch it," she says, voice tight. "Photograph. Chain." Rourke leans close, careful not to contaminate anything, and notices something else. A scrap of paper under the tape sleeve with a few words scribbled in a shaky hand. It wasn't supposed to be her. That's all. Not a confession. Not an explanation. Fracture. Morales reads it, lips parting slightly as if she's tasted something bitter. "This could be authentic," she murmurs. "Or it could be staged." Caldwell steps in behind them, eyes like stone. "Either way," he says, "Barlow won't testify." And that's the new nightmare. If Barlow was guilty, he took knowledge with him to the grave. If Barlow was framed, someone just eliminated a man who could clear his name. Either way, the case doesn't get simpler. It gets darker. It gets smarter. It starts to feel like the department is walking through a house full of open doors, and behind any one of them there might be another tape, another secret, another person who decided that in 1989 silence was safer than truth. Back at the station, the unmarked cassette from Barlow's desk is placed on the playback machine like a bomb. Everyone watches through the glass. The tape whirs. Static blooms. Then, faint at first, comes audio, no image, just sound. A man's voice breathing close to the microphone, speaking in a low rush. "You don't understand what he has," the voice says. "He records everything. He keeps it. The tape warbles. A second voice cuts in, sharp, angry, closer. "Shut up." A scuffle. A thump. Then another voice, softer, almost amused, like someone smiling in the dark. "Let it run," Wallace Klein whispers. The room feels like it loses oxygen. Rourke stares at the speaker, skin prickling. Morales's face drains of color. Caldwell's jaw flexes once, the only sign he's human. The tape ends abruptly, as if ripped from the machine mid-recording. No names. No dates. Just proof of proximity, proof of fear, proof that Wallace Klein wasn't a solitary predator hiding in plain sight. He was a node, a spider with threads. And somewhere out there, beyond the protest chants and news vans and rain-slick roads, the rest of those threads are still attached to living hands. Outside, thunder rolls again, long and low, like the sky is clearing its throat. The town keeps asking the same question in 100 different voices, in headlines and whispers and prayers. Who did it? Who helped? Who knew? And in the middle of that storm of wanting, the truth remains just out of reach. Close enough to smell, close enough to taste, but still hidden behind static, behind mud, behind the kind of silence that doesn't happen by accident. The tape from Barlow's desk leaves a residue in the air that nobody can scrub out. It isn't a confession, it isn't a clean smoking gun. It's worse, static and breath and fear. A fragment that proves the nightmare had more than one set of hands. In the audio lab, the playback ends and the speakers go dead, and for a few seconds the room stays frozen, like someone hit pause on reality. You can hear the building settling. You can hear distant phones ringing. You can hear the rain chewing on the roof. And in that silence, Wallace Klein's whisper, "Let it run," hangs there like a fingerprint on glass. Morales doesn't let anyone move first. "Lock it down," she says, voice tight, eyes already calculating warrants and chain of custody and courtroom landmines. Every person who touched that tape, every person who entered that house, every person who stepped into that study before the scene was secured. I want names. I want times. I want it clean. Caldwell from Internal Affairs nods once, expression carved from granite. "It won't be clean," he says, not as an excuse but as a warning. It's never clean when the badge is involved. Rourke feels it in his gut. The case isn't just moving forward now, it's collapsing inward, like a building whose support beams were rotted all along. A dead captain, a predator with tapes, a deputy father in a reflection, a storage unit held under a grieving man's name. The story everyone thought they knew is tearing, and the tear is widening. They treat Barlow's death like a homicide until they can prove it isn't. That's what procedure says. That's what survival says. Crime scene photos, GSR swabs, blood spatter patterns analyzed by someone who doesn't care about rank or reputation. The pistol goes into a bag sealed like an accusation. The angle of the shot, kept clinical, kept cold, doesn't match the lazy suicide story people want to swallow because it's simple. And simple stories are oxygen in a town suffocating on scandal. But oxygen is not truth. Morales stands in the hallway outside the autopsy suite, while a medical examiner speaks in careful, neutral terms. "No obvious sign of struggle," the examiner says. "But I'm not comfortable calling it immediately. There are inconsistencies. We'll run everything. We'll confirm." Inconsistencies. The word lands like a match dropped into gasoline. The sheriff wants the word suicide printed and sealed before sunrise, because a department can survive a corrupt civilian predator, maybe even a corrupt deputy, but it can't survive the image of leadership falling apart on camera. Caldwell blocks him. Morales blocks him. The sheriff's face reddens. His eyes flick to cameras outside, to protesters chanting, to reporters with microphones hungry for a single line that will explode the story nationwide. His voice drops. "You're burning the whole office down," he hisses. Morales doesn't blink. "It was already burning," she replies and walks away. The unmarked cassette becomes an anchor. They send it to the same audio analyst who cleaned Klein's whisper. The analyst isolates frequencies, stretches the waveform like it's taffy, tries to pry meaning out of distortion. He finds small details, background hum consistent with fluorescent lights, a faint mechanical clicking like a ceiling fan or an old wall clock, a distant tone that could be a police radio squelch, the soft slam of a metal drawer. He flags a 2-second segment where the first voice says, he records everything, and behind it, faint but clear, is a chime. For notes. Rourke hears it and his eyes harden. "That chime," he murmurs. Morales looks at him. "You recognize it?" "That's the old dispatch console," he says. "The one they replaced in '92. We had it in the bullpen. It chimed like that when a line opened." Caldwell's gaze narrows. So the tape wasn't recorded in Barlow's house, he says. No, Rourke replies. It was recorded inside the department. And just like that, the walls feel closer. The building itself becomes suspect. Every hallway becomes evidence. Every door becomes a question. They pull the archived equipment logs. They find a note, an audio patch installed in 1988 for training purposes. Maintenance by, of course, Klein Electronics. A clean little record, typed, signed, filed like any other purchase order. The kind of thing nobody notices until it starts screaming. Morales stares at the name and looks like she wants to spit. Meaning, Caldwell says slowly, Klein had access to the building's audio systems. Meaning, Morales answers, the department may have handed him the microphone. Outside, the storm finally breaks into sunlight, and the heat returns like a slap. News vans sweat in the parking lot. Protesters don't leave, they just get louder. Someone holds up a sign that reads "Cold Case, cover up" in red paint that drips like blood. Another reads "Who is next?" The town's fear isn't theoretical anymore. It's personal. Because if the people who were supposed to protect you were tangled up in this, then who have you been living beside all these years? In the jail, Wallace Klein hears the commotion through the walls like distant music. When Morales requests another interview, his lawyer objects, delays, posture stiff with performative outrage. Morales gets a judge on the phone. The judge authorizes a narrow, monitored session. Klein is brought in wearing the same calm expression, as if he's stepping onto a stage and the lights have just warmed up. Morales doesn't sit. She stands. She holds the cassette evidence photo up where he can see it. We recovered a tape from Captain Barlow's desk, she says. Your voice is on it. Klein's eyes flick to the photo, then back to her face. A small smile appears, thin as a wire. So he finally listened, he murmurs. Did you record inside the sheriff's office? Morales asks. Klein shrugs, chains clinking softly. People invite you into their homes, he says. Into their cars. Into their lives. Sometimes they even hand you keys. Rourke watches from the corner, hands clasped behind his back, trying to keep his breathing even. He can feel Klein probing for reactions like fingers testing bruises. Morales leans in. We know the dispatch chime is in the background, she says. We know that tape was recorded in the department. That's not rumor. That's forensic. Klein's smile widens slightly, like she's complimented him. You're learning, he whispers. So proud. Who said shut up? Morales snaps. Klein's eyes drift upward as if searching his memory, as if this is a casual trivia game. Someone with a lot to lose, he says. Someone with a uniform. Morales slaps a folder down on the table. Photos spill out, old roster shots, men from 1989 including Frederick Sykes, including Captain Barlow when he still had a full head of hair, including others whose names are being whispered in hallways now like curses. Pick, she says. You want to be the center of the story? Then tell it. Pick who was in the room. Klein doesn't look at the photos. Not one. He keeps his gaze on Morales, eyes bright, amused. You want me to do your job, he says softly. You want me to choose which mask the public tears off first. Morales's voice drops low. You're not in control here. Klein leans forward as far as the cuffs allow. I've been in control for 34 years, he murmurs. Even now you're chasing my breadcrumbs. Rourke steps closer, unable to stop himself. Where is Marlene? He says, each word a nail. Klein tilts his head. For a second something passes through his expression, something like irritation maybe or hunger. She's where you put her, he replies. Rourke freezes. Morales's eyes narrow. Explain. Klein smiles. You built the swamp roads, he says. You built the blind spots. You built the silence. I just used what was already there. Morales cuts the session before she can lose control of her own voice. They drag Klein out, his humming starting again the moment the door closes, that low, tuneless sound that feels like mockery wrapped in lullaby. Then the phone rings. Not a public tip line call. Not a reporter. A secure line internal. Caldwell answers and his expression changes mid-sentence, eyes hardening. He covers the receiver and looks at Morales. We have a problem, he says. What kind? Morales asks, already knowing there are only bad kinds now. The evidence warehouse, Caldwell replies. Someone tried to get in. Rourke is moving before the sentence ends. The drive to the warehouse is short and violent, siren wailing, heat shimmering off the road. When they arrive, the metal roll-up door is half-bent, lock pried, fresh tool marks shining against old paint. Inside, boxes sit stacked like coffins. A security guard stands pale and shaking, one hand pressed to his mouth. "I heard the alarm," the guard stammers. "I came around and 2 guys' hoods ran. I didn't see their faces." Morales's eyes sweep the aisles. Anything missing? They check fast. Tape inventory. The notebook. The new mangrove evidence. The bracelet. Everything that matters. Everything that can't be replaced. It's all still there. Until a tech opens a smaller cabinet and goes still. "The Barlow cassette sleeve," she says. "The outer sleeve is gone. Not the tape. The sleeve. The paper. The thing with possible fingerprints, possible fibers, possible handwriting impressions. The thing that could tell them who touched it, who staged it, who planted it. Someone came here not to erase the big evidence but to erase the connective tissue, the subtle proof that points to living hands." Rourke feels cold spread under his ribs. "They're cleaning," he mutters. Morales turns slowly, face tight. "They're not scared of Klein," she says. "They're scared of what Klein can point at." Caldwell's phone buzzes again. He checks it in his jaw. Morales's eyes flash. "How?" Caldwell's mouth tightens. "Someone inside," he says, because at this point someone inside is the answer to everything. The town reacts like a match to gasoline. By evening, the protests double. A candlelight vigil becomes a shouting match. People scream at deputies behind barricades. Someone throws a bottle. Someone else shouts Marlene's name like a curse. Across the street from the courthouse, Marlene's sister stands with a photo of Marlene pressed to her chest and looks like her bones are trying to hold her together. Rourke approaches her carefully, because he doesn't have the right to ask anything of her anymore. Not after the years. Not after the failures. But she sees him coming and her eyes sharpen. "You knew my father," she says, voice brittle. Rourke swallows. "I worked with him," he admits. "Was he involved?" she demands, and the question is a blade, clean, direct, aimed straight at whatever heart he has left. Rourke tries to answer with honesty instead of comfort, and that's harder. "I don't know," he says. "But I know he left something behind. A letter. A unit. A hold order. He knew something." Her laugh breaks out sharp and ugly, nothing like humor. "He knew," she spits. "He knew, and he still let her disappear." Rourke feels the words hit, feels them lodge. He doesn't defend a dead man. He doesn't glorify one. He only says, "We're going to find out what he knew. And why." She steps closer, voice trembling with rage that's been fermenting since 1989. "If you find out he helped them," she whispers, "I swear I'll burn this whole county down." Rourke believes her. That night, Morales sits alone in her office with the notebook open, the pages lit like a confession under a desk lamp. She circles another entry Rourke hadn't focused on yet. July 2nd, 89, Fish Camp. Jay brings tools. Beneath it, back up in tin. Tin. Tools. Fish Camp. Florida is littered with abandoned fish camps. Rotting docks, rusted sheds. Places where people vanish because nobody goes there unless they have a reason. Morales calls Rourke and Caldwell at midnight. Her voice is clipped, urgent. "We're going to the fish camp," she says. "Now." Because the case isn't waiting for daylight. The case learned long ago that darkness is safer. And somewhere out there, in the damp rot between water and land, there might be a tin box full of answers, names, tapes, proof, before whoever is still cleaning up decides to finish the job. The convoy rolls out under a moon that looks bruised behind clouds. Headlights carve tunnels through palmetto shadows. Radios hiss. The air outside tastes like wet earth and gasoline. Rourke watches the tree line slide by and feels the old dread return. The kind that doesn't come from fear of a suspect but fear of the system. Fear that the truth is always one step ahead, always slipping away, always being erased by hands you can't see. And as they turn off the main road onto a narrow dirt track that leads toward the water, the headlights catch something pale on the shoulder. An abandoned television set, face cracked, screen black, half sunk in mud like a dead eye. For a split second, it looks like the town itself is watching them, silent and accusing. waiting to see if they'll finally do what they should have done in 1989. The dirt road ends at a sagging wooden gate. Beyond it, the fish camp sits hunched in the dark, a cluster of shacks and a rotting dock reaching into black water. The wind pushes through the boards and makes them groan like something trapped. The smell is thick brine algae decay. Flashlights snap on, beams slicing across peeling paint and rusted nails. Morales steps forward first, boots crunching shells, gun holstered but hand ready. Caldwell flanks her. Rourke's pulse bangs hard, not from adrenaline alone but from the sense that they aren't alone here. That someone else read the notebook too. Someone else knows they're coming. Someone else is waiting in the dark with a reason to stop them. A flashlight beam catches a small metal object on a crate near the main shack. An empty cassette sleeve, plain, unmarked, damp at the edges as if it was left minutes ago. Rourke's breath catches. Morales goes still. Caldwell whispers, barely audible, "They're here." And the fish camp answers with a sound, soft, deliberate, unmistakable footsteps on rotting wood. Moving just out of the flashlight's reach, retreating deeper into the dark like a promise that the next piece of this story is about to lunge out of hiding, whether they're ready or not. The footsteps vanish into the sound of the wind. For a few seconds no one moves. Every flashlight beam hovers at the same angle, cutting the wet air, catching on dust motes and rain mist, painting the warped walls of the fish camp silver white. Then Rourke gestures, silent, 2 fingers forward, and the team advances. Slowly, boots on damp wood. The dock groans beneath their weight like it's protesting after all these years. The old fish camp is a skeleton of what it used to be. Rusted hooks dangle from beams. Nets hang stiff and green with mildew. There's a smell under the salt and algae. A smell that doesn't belong, thick and coppery. Morales feels it too. Her hand rests on her sidearm, thumb on the guard, eyes locked on the door ahead. A deputy pushes it open. The hinge screams. Inside. A room lit only by their flashlights. Old furniture. A tipped-over chair. A metal cooler in the corner, lid open, water pooled around it. And on the table, right in the beam of Rourke's light, an old tin box. Tin. The notebook said it. Back up in tin. Morales nods once, steady, but her voice betrays a tremor. Nobody touches it until we photograph everything. We do this by the book. Rourke steps closer anyway, camera ready. The box is dented, its hinges rusted. The top is marked with a single black X drawn in thick marker. He crouches, snaps his photos, then motions for gloves. The latex snaps in the silence. He lifts the lid. Inside, there are 3 cassette tapes, wrapped in plastic, and an envelope gone soft from humidity. The plastic is yellowed but sealed. On each tape, a date written in black pen, July 2nd, 89, July 9th, 89, July 15th, 89. Morales exhales, sharp. He cataloged them. He hid them out here. Caldwell leans over her shoulder. Or someone else did. Maybe to keep them safe. Maybe to keep them away from him. Rourke pulls the envelope next. It's brittle, damp, edges curling like burned paper. Inside is a single sheet of lined notebook paper and a Polaroid photograph. The paper reads, "If you found this, it's not over. They'll bury me next. The keys and what you can't hear." No signature. The Polaroid shows the fish camp itself, but younger, boards still white, boats still tied up. 2 men stand on the dock. One is unmistakable. Wallace Klein, younger, hair thick, mouth tilted in that same thin smile. The other man has his back to the camera, uniform shirt visible, badge glinting. Morales whispers, "Sykes." Rourke stares. Maybe. The badge number is blurry, but under magnification later, they'll see it clearly, 241. The number belonged not to Sykes, not to Barlow, but to a deputy named Henry Hank Jeffers. The one who ran evidence in 1989. The one who signed the receipt for the video media that never appeared. The walls of the fish camp seem to tighten around them. "Get these to the van," Morales orders. "Chain of custody from this second forward." But as the deputy turns to step back outside, a light flares in the distance, headlights cutting through mangroves, bouncing down the dirt road. Engines. More than one. Rourke feels his heartbeat climb. We're not alone out here. The first vehicle stops short of the gate. Doors slam. Flashlights. Voices. Not the echo of news reporters. The tone is different, short, clipped command voices. Then a shout. Sheriff's office. Lower your weapons. Morales frowns, confused. What? A man steps into the light of their flashlights. Rain dripping from his brim. The sheriff himself. Behind him a half-dozen deputies. None of them from Morales's task force. This is an active scene, she shouts. Not anymore, the sheriff replies. His voice is smooth, measured, dangerous. You're trespassing on property under county jurisdiction. You've overstepped, Morales. Overstepped. Morales spits. We have warrants, probable cause, and evidence connecting this site to 3 murders. The sheriff doesn't blink. You have headlines, he says. You have chaos. And you have a department on the verge of collapse because of it. Rourke steps between them. You knew about this place. He says, not asking, just stating the rot out loud. The sheriff's eyes slide to him. Detective, you should have stayed retired. Caldwell's hand goes to his holster. You don't have authority to obstruct a state investigation, sir. Authority? The sheriff says quietly. I am the authority here. Behind him, one of his deputies shifts uneasily. Another glances toward the tin box being bagged on the table. Everyone feels the air splitting. The chain of command cracking under the weight of truth. Morales holds her ground. If you walk out with that evidence, she says, it's destruction of material in an active homicide case. The sheriff stares at her for a long second. Then he exhales, the sound heavy, tired. You don't get it, he says. This isn't about one case. It's about what happens if all of it comes out. What comes out? Morales asks. Everything, he says. Every deal, every cover, every file that was misplaced. You think Barlow shot himself because of guilt? He shot himself because he knew the dam was breaking. The rain thickens again, wind rising, the smell of brine cutting through everything. The sheriff's radio crackles on his shoulder, voice garbled. A dispatcher calling for a unit check. He ignores it. Morales doesn't. She hears the tone. The background hum. Her brain freezes. The same chime from the tape. Her voice comes out low, almost a whisper. That's the sound. Rourke realizes it at the same time. The chime in the background of the Barlow cassette. The one that proved the conversation was recorded inside the department. It wasn't from some forgotten console. It was live. Present. Current. Someone's recording them right now. Rourke's head jerks toward the sheriff's radio, and he steps